Now, let's check the pulse of Husker Nation with your hosts, Greg Sharp and Josh Hilkeman.
Thank you. Welcome to our Thursday edition. Another day, another conference announcing what they're planning on doing for college football. Welcome to our Thursday night show here on Sports Alley. Today it was the SEC. Yesterday we heard from the ACC that they were going to go to a 10-game conference schedule plus one non-conference game. The ACC was hoping to protect some longtime rivalries with teams in the SEC. For instance, Florida State would have been able to hang on to their game with Florida. Clemson could have held on to their matchup with South Carolina. Georgia Tech could have played Georgia. So that's what the ACC did yesterday. They didn't announce their games. They did say they would start the week of September the 7th was when they would get their season underway, maybe some games during the week, and then obviously the first full Saturday of the 12th of September. Well, the SEC today came out and a little surprised by this, to be honest with you. They're going to go with 10 games, conference only. So the SEC goes from playing 8 conference games to 10. They're going to add 2 conference opponents. But the kicker, Josh, that really surprised me was not starting until September the 26th. So they're going to hold off until the last week of September to start their 10-game conference schedule. They believe that they need a little bit more time to get more data accumulated and roll with this. That surprised me. Don't know about you, but it surprised me they're going to hold off that long.
It is really surprising, and I was surprised, first of all, that they decided to go conference only and didn't, try to protect some of those ACC, non-conference crossovers that have been going on for so long. But yeah, we talked about this earlier in the week that the decision by the NCAA to allow teams to, start playing that last week of August kind of gave teams flexibility, either to start early if they wanted or to start late, or, give teams and conferences. But the SEC choosing to start that late is a little bit surprising because then you don't really have much flexibility. Although I guess, who knows what the postseason / bowl season is going to look like anyway, if there's going to be one at all. So, maybe they're thinking that they all play in pretty much warm weather states for the most part, so maybe they're thinking they can just play into January or February or March, I don't know. So I guess there's a lot of different aspects to it that I'm not thinking of, and so maybe they think this is their best bet. And, we had heard a week or two ago that the Pac-12 was considering pushing all the way back into the end of September and maybe even into October to start their season. And that made sense to me for the Pac-12 to do that. It kind of seemed like something that made sense for them, but to see the SEC do what they came out with today, it was a little bit surprising. I'm with you on that.
Okay, so that came out mid-afternoon today. Wake up this morning, get that first cup of coffee. Teddy Greenstein, who joins us every Thursday here on the program, had a column on the Chicago Tribune. He had details, quoting unidentified sources within the Big Ten, that the Big Ten is, yes, targeting September the 5th. Week 1 to start their season, but build in 3 to 4 bye weeks within the schedule to allow teams, if they have a bad week with positive tests, to quarantine, collect themselves, and then get ready to go with a week off in there. That makes a heck of a lot of sense to me, that they are close to releasing a schedule, but it's not completely done yet. And then we heard earlier that the Big 12 was going to try to start and play some Week 0 games at the end of August. So you got all these conferences doing a little bit different things. But Teddy had the story early for all the readers in Chicago, and then the online version saying that he's being told 10 conference games with the start of September the 5th. Makes a lot of sense to me.
Right, and that's what I was going to say is that, it's not official yet from the Big Ten, but if Teddy is right and that's what they end up doing, it makes a whole lot of sense because you don't back yourself into a corner, especially like I was talking about earlier, SEC, Pac-12, mostly warm weather schools. Big Ten's not. So if you want, you give yourself some flexibility moving the schedule around with building in those bye weeks and starting a little bit earlier, at least starting when this season was supposed to start anyway with non-conference. So I'm 100% with you. It makes sense to me to basically start the season when you were supposed to start, as long as everything is good to go for the schools that are, where the games are taking place. And once you get going, you kind of take it week by week and see what happens. And if you need to move the schedule around, just like we've seen with Major League Baseball, obviously they're playing every single day, but they've had to do a little bit of shuffling with the schedule, and they really don't have a lot of leeway with what they've done. They've packed in those 60 games with very, very little wiggle room. Whereas if, the Big Ten, if they start September 5th and they play 10 games and they have 3 or 4 bye weeks, that allows you quite a bit of room to maneuver. And, if a team has a breakout, then you can, move some things around. So I 100% agree. It makes a lot of sense to start as early as you can and then build in some, a little bit of flexibility into that schedule.
We're a week into the expanded workouts with the players. It started last Friday, so we're now 7 days into that. A week from tomorrow would be the first day of the fall camp, provided you're starting on September the 5th. And even the NCAA Oversight Committee today said even if your season doesn't start on September the 5th, you can go ahead and start your fall camps next Friday. So fall camps, regardless, are going to be a go starting August the 7th. Lincoln Journal-Star has up a story with quotes from Athletic Director Bill Moose, who says waiting for this football schedule has been very uncomfortable for Nebraska and the state. He said, quote, Nebraska wants and needs football, and I want to deliver it to them. So Bill Moose, who's been pretty steadfast on this, we want to try to get as many games in as we possibly can. He also went on and gave the Journal-Star some quotes saying, we still think we can get a sizable crowd inside a Memorial Stadium for games. So he's not going the Ohio State or the Illinois route that we've talked about the last couple of nights about capping it at 20% or capping it at 10,000 fans. He still wants to go big as long as he can get the okay from the health experts.
Yeah, and I think that's the news from those quotes that you talked about. It's, obviously he wants to play games and he's going to do everything he can to have those games happen. But to say, and, a lot of, like you said, a lot of teams have already come out and said, well, we're either not going to have any fans or it's going to be very, very few fans. Bill Moose has made it pretty clear that he wants to have as many fans as the health experts will allow. And, he said that they're going to follow all the regulations of local officials and do what they can. But it seems like he's kind of waiting till the last possible moment, or at least he will wait till the last possible moment to try to make those decisions. And even though that's going to be a big headache for ticketing and for working those games and getting people into those games, it's going to be a headache for all of that. But I think that obviously fans are going to appreciate it if they can do it safely and they can get a big crowd in there for games on Saturdays, because it's going to be like you said at the very beginning. Nebraska needs this. They want football and they really need it to get a shot in the arm. And we're all hoping for the best, and it would be amazing to see at least a mostly full Memorial Stadium for whoever the opponent is. It doesn't matter at this point who the Huskers are playing game one, but that would just be amazing to be able to have a mostly full crowd, or maybe even at capacity if that's allowed. So yeah, that's great news.
Bill Moose was a part of a conference call today within the conference where they discussed a lot of these issues. They discussed the schedule. I got to believe Nebraska has seen some sort of outline of what their schedule is going to look like, but nothing official, nothing from the league, and obviously Nebraska can't do it until they get the official go-ahead from the Big Ten Conference. And who knows, Josh, they may be having some conversations with their television partners going, okay, if we give these 6 teams this week off, do we have enough games and good games for you to fill your TV windows on September the 19th or October the 12th, whatever the date may be? That may be the final holdup, is making sure the TV partners go, yep, that looks good, yep, that looks good too, and that looks good. And I will say this, if the Big Ten can pull this off and get games on the 5th of September, they're going to have the eyes of the entire nation on them, because we know the Pac-12 isn't starting then, we know the SEC isn't starting then, and we know the ACC is not starting September the 5th.
Right, exactly. That's what I was just going to say, is that there's so many moving pieces to this with the TV scheduling, because each conference has just now, with the SEC and the ACC yesterday, finally you kind of know what all the conferences' plans are for what they're going to do with the season. And there hardly is even any schedule out yet. The ACC kind of had a partial one, but not with any dates, like any hard dates. So you're going to have so many moving pieces with once conferences actually come out with a schedule with dates and times, and that probably won't happen until all the behind-the-scenes TV stuff is done anyway. But once all that's out there, then you're going to deal with moving the schedule around anyway. So that's going to be probably throughout whatever this season looks like. It's probably going to be a moving target anyway. But that's it. It's going to be really interesting to see what that first week, whether it's the last week of August or, like you said, if the Big Ten starts that first weekend of September, Labor Day weekend, if, how many games there actually are on TV. And it could very well be very Big Ten heavy the first weekend there. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that TV schedule is filled out.
Game day may be forced to go to a Big Ten school, right? I mean, they may have been the only options that they have for that thing as well.
For sure.
That ACC thing reminded me of the NFL, where the season ends and they go, okay, Chiefs, you're playing these teams and these teams. These guys you get at home, these guys you get in the road. But they don't give you dates until like April. It's the same thing the ACC did yesterday with that grid. No dates, no order, just these are the teams you will be playing in the next 3 months. But hopefully we'll get something solid from them. Hopefully, for all of us, we get something solid from the Big Ten sooner than later. We got some big news here at the Husker Sports Network. For years, you've heard us talk about our phone number of 866-487-HUSKER1. We're changing that, and we're changing it for a couple of different reasons. One, we're changing to a number that has the capability for you either to call and be on the air with us and talk and give us your thoughts and opinions, or text us your thoughts or opinions about a particular topic. So we're going to be pounding you with this phone number over and over and over again for the coming weeks until you get it memorized or plugged into your phone, put into your favorites. But it is area code 531, which is a new area code for the state of Nebraska, by the way. So 531-500-4686. 531-500-4686. And again, you can call or text that number to get your messaging over to us to talk about on the air. So this will encompass Sports Nightly. It'll encompass Big Red Reaction. So huge news. And we're excited about this, Josh, because it's going to be able to, one more way for people to get to us without having to maybe hold the phone to their ear and wait on hold for us to get it, is send us a text with their instant thoughts about a certain topic.
Yeah, it's really cool because, there are a lot of people out there I know, and I would be one too. If I'm listening to a show and listening to the radio, I don't always have time to call in and wait on hold and go on the air and talk. And sometimes I'll be able to formulate my thoughts better in just a quick text. So I think it's good. Hopefully we'll get a lot of interaction with it. But it's awesome, and we're looking forward to seeing how this will affect our show, both Sports Nightly and, like you said, Big Red Reaction. I think that's going to be huge for Big Red Reaction once we get going with a season, that people can not only call in, but they can also text, and we'll start reading those texts on the air.
Yeah, great stuff. Again, 531, that's the area code, 500-4686. If you want to send us a text tonight, go ahead. So then you have it in your phone. So 531-500-4686. That's our call-in line for our Woodhouse Auto Family hotline or our U.S. Cellular text line. Again, 531-500-4686. We're excited to be able to add that to our little things to do here on Sports Nightly and for the Husker Sports Network. All right, coming up tonight, we continue our position breakdowns. When we come back, Tony Tuioti, the Husker defensive line coach, will join us. We'll talk about the Husker defensive line, and then we'll rank them out, how they fit in the Big Ten West. That's coming up next. Hi, Greg Sharp, Josh Hookeman with you. Tim Curran back in our broadcast studios. Tonight we continue on our position breakdowns with a look at the Husker defensive line.
Tonight on Sports Nightly, it's the Husker football position breakdown.
Stone gets the snap. Huskers in the blitz. They throw it out the flat. Taylor makes a catch. He's immediately thrown down. No gain. He'll lose a couple of yards. Great play by Deandre Thomas. That'll lose 2. It'll be 4th down and 10.
Tonight,
McFarland in the backfield winning. 4th and 1 from the 40. They turn. Give it off to McFarland. He gets stuffed and stopped short. He did not get the first down. Oh, the Huskers fired through there. Ben Stilley knocked him down, and the Huskers will take over on downs at the 40-yard line.
What a great hit.
defensive line coach, Tony Tuioti.
And here to talk about the Husker defensive line, Tony Tuioti, back for his second season with the Huskers on this staff. And, Coach, a lot of people are kind of pointing at the lack of experience in your room, but if I remember right, you played a lot of guys last year, and a lot of the guys that got some snaps for you are back for this football team. What's your overall feeling about the group that you have right now?
Yeah, we lost a lot of playing experience, with the twins being gone and Darren Daniels being gone. But I'm really excited about this group. We did play a lot of guys, and we tried to rotate as many guys as we could throughout the season. So we have some guys that are going to play for us this year that have taken a lot of reps, of course, in Ben Stilley and Darren Daniels, Damon Downs, and Deandre Thomas. So those guys played a lot. And then the other thing, too, that was really helpful was having the redshirt rule. So Ty Robinson was able to play some for us last year, get his feet wet, and also Casey Rogers. So really excited about this new group of guys coming up, and they're hungry, they're eager to play.
Ben Stilley, it seemed to me, played maybe his best football right toward the end of the season. What did you see from Ben, and what are your expectations for him?
I got very high expectations for Ben. I think he's got high expectations for himself. He's very smart. He's like having a coach on the field. And he's taken ownership during this offseason, especially during this time here with this pandemic, to get the guys together, try to master the playbook, doing a lot of player run activities as much as they can together. But he's been doing a wonderful job, and we're going to need his leadership. And a lot of guys look up to him because he does all the things the right way. So I got high expectations for him, and he knows he's got to carry a big load for us this year.
You mentioned Deandre Thomas. That's a guy that's been around the program for quite a while. He's played a lot of Big Ten football. That's a guy that I think is that one of the guys you trust that when you put him out there, he's going to do the right things?
Yeah, no doubt. With Deandre Thomas and Damon Daniels, those guys played a lot for us. So I definitely have a lot of trust in those guys to come out and play for us. And, Deandre's awesome because he gives us some flexibility. He's not the biggest guy, but he plays big and he's tough. And, he can play some end for us. And he's also got position flex to play at the nose guard position for us. And I didn't play him much this season at the nose guard position, but I have done it in practice, and I have confidence that he can do that too as well for us.
The next class of guys was Casey Rogers and Tate Wildeman. How about those two, and how important are they now to your room?
Well, they're really important, especially coming into this season. I told a lot of guys when we were coming into spring ball that everybody's up, and, everybody has a chance to showcase what they got and show how they can help our team, and we're going to need each and everybody to contribute in some way. And, I think Tate has done a phenomenal job during the offseason, getting himself big, fast, strong. He looks great right now. Casey does too as well. And Tate, early on in his career when he got in here, was looking at being a guy that can contribute early, but then got injured. So, he's been a warrior. He's been battling through that, and I think he's back to 100%. So I can't wait to see him be able to come out and help us out this year because we're going to need his length. He's got good athleticism. And, for a guy that's as long as he is, he can give some offensive tackles some fits because he's got long leverage. And for the first two practices we had in spring, I really liked what I saw out of him. And then in Casey Rogers, he gives us some position flex where he can play some end, and he's getting bigger too as well where he can play closer to the ball for us. So I really like both of them in their development and where they're coming so far. And they're so young. They're only going to be sophomores. So I'm excited for, what they're going to be able to do for us in a few years to come too as well.
Yeah, we're visiting with Husker defensive line coach Tony Tuioti here on Sports Nightly. Last year at this time, a lot of high thoughts and expectations for Keem Green. He got to camp a little bit late. You were able to use him for a couple of games but kept the red shirt on him. Give us a progress report on Keem and how big a factor can he be for the Huskers?
I've had conversations with Keem just talking about those specific points for him to come in and be able to contribute for us right away this season. And, he needed that year last year, especially because he came so late to learn the playbook and be able to, understand what we want to do up front and with his fundamental technique. But he did an awesome job in January getting himself in shape. I thought he had really good 2 days of practice before we were shut down because of the pandemic. And, he looks good now here in summer workouts too right now. So we're going to need him. He's a big athletic body that can play defensive end and also play nose guard position for us, similar to, what Carlos Davis was able to do for us too as well. So I love his size and his strength, so we're going to need that for sure.
Coach, you had two guys that you were able to keep a red shirt on last year as well as Keem, and that's Ty Robinson and Mosai Newsome. How about their progress as football players in this program and their ability to help the Huskers out this fall?
Yeah, love Ty, love Mo. I mean, those two, they have such great attitude, great demeanor. They're team-first guys. They want to do whatever they can to help the program out. I know Ty Robinson came in, with very high expectations to come and contribute early, and we had a conversation just in terms of big picture for him and how we can really maximize his opportunities here, and probably using the red shirt to get his feet wet, and now he's ready to go. He looks great, and I'm really excited about Ty. I think he's going to be a very special player by the time he gets out of here. I know that's putting a lot on him right now, but he has that demeanor. He's got that want to, and he's doing everything he can right now to get himself in a position where he can take a lot of snaps for us this upcoming season. I like to put a lot on him early and have him go, and so he's a guy that's going to be able to do that for multiple years for us here. So I'm really excited about him and his development and his growth so far. And then Mosai Newsome, I thought he did a great job last year helping out in the scout team. And every week, Coach Frost and Coach Held and all the offensive coaches would come to me and say, hey, Mosai is hard to block on that side. And they're really excited about him. And, he gives us some pass rush ability, too, as well. He's getting himself bigger. He came in about 250. He's sitting about 285 right now, so he's put on some good weight. So they're young players that I'm really excited about. And, if they continue to grow and develop, we should be okay here for the next few seasons up front.
Well, I know all last fall going into the recruiting, you knew you were losing a lot of experience, and so you went and found a couple of junior college linemen to kind of bolster that a little bit, and Jordan Riley and Phildarius Payne. How about their adaptation into the program? Obviously, you had Jordan here for the spring. How about those two guys? I know Riley creates a shadow. That's a big body.
Yeah, Jordan is a really big body. Really, when you look at it, you got Jordan that's about 6'6". He's sitting about 335 right now. When he came in, he was about 305, and he looks great. He's working hard. Coach Duvall does a great job down with the strength and conditioning program, and I really like where Jordan's at physically. Very athletic for a big guy, very similar to Ty Robinson. And, those two guys are both 6'6", sitting about 3. Ty's anywhere between 325 and 330. And Jordan's about 330, 335. So, you're looking at the roster from last year to this year, we're longer and we're bigger than we were last year. And these guys are pretty athletic for their size. They just don't have the game experience, like the Twins brought to us for many years and Darren too as well. But, they have the athletic ability. I think, just getting a few games under their belt and being able to, deal with what's going to happen from game to game with them, I think they'll be good to go by the time we get into conference play and all that stuff. But, we lose out on those non-conference games now, so they got to be ready more than ever now.
Getting busy with Tony Tuioti, Husker defensive line coach, here in our position breakdowns. Two high school players were given scholarships in your room, and that's Marquis Black and Nash Huttmocker. Give us the update on those two guys who've been here for just a short time.
Yeah, love them. I think everybody knows everything about Nash. I think he's probably one of the most popular guys on social media, just with what him and his dad are able to do in the weight room and out hunting and fishing and all that stuff. But Nash is as blue-collar as it gets. He's great here. The guys love him. I don't know if we have enough weights for him to lift here in the weight room. I think the other day Coach Duvall had him squatting, and I don't know if there was any more room left on the barbell to add any more plates on there. But I think by the time Nash leaves here as a senior, he's probably going to be the strongest guy we've ever had here. And so he's great. Marquis Black, very athletic. He's somebody, too, as well, that I'm really excited about. He's somebody that, can win on the edge and then also be strong enough to be able to play in the run game and at the point of attack. So really two young guys that are, that come in and see how they can help us this year. But interior guys, nonetheless, that we're really excited about having.
I know Chris Walker's also a part of your room, and also you have some walk-ons. Every coach in Nebraska has walk-ons that help build depth, help guys work on the scout team a little bit, and I'm sure that they help fill up your room as well.
Yeah, you talk about guys that bleed Nebraska football since they were babies, and it's great to have those type of kids. They remind me a lot of when I was back at my old school in Hawaii. I think there's something special about having local kids home and playing for the home team. And Chris Walker is, he's back from his injury from last year, and he's full go now. So it's great to see him up and running, and he's sitting anywhere between about 300 pounds and put some good weight on him. And he'd be somebody that I'd love to see him on the field and be able to help us out with too as well. And then we also have Colton East, that's another walk-on football player for us that has done a great job, very smart, very athletic. And, I'm really excited and happy that he's part of our group. And then we have another nose guard, and Ben Blinkfielder, who's been in the program for a while. And, these guys are great. They do anything that you ask them to do. They're all about the team, and they all want to see the team have a lot of success. And you need those type of guys on your roster to be able to help. So if we can get something out of Chris Walker, especially this year, that would be awesome.
Well, Coach, we always appreciate the time and the rundown on your guys in your room. Keep this group healthy as you get through practice sessions, and let's all keep our fingers crossed we've got football here in a few months.
Will do, guys. Appreciate you. Stay safe.
There he is, Tony Tuioti, Husker defensive line coach. Joining us on our Sports Nightly Hotline, brought to you by the Woodhouse Auto family, bringing you more choices in brands, locations, and service. Experience the difference. Purchase with confidence. This is Woodhouse. All right, we'll take a break. When we come back, we'll get Josh's thoughts about the Husker defensive line, and then we'll all grade out where we think Nebraska's D-line fits within the Big Ten West. All that's coming up next. Thursday night, Greg Sharp, Josh Hokum, and Tim Curran back in our studios engineering this bus here tonight. Thanks again to Tony Tuioti, Husker defensive line coach, for spending some time with us here on Sports Nightly. All right, before we get into the rankings, Josh, your thoughts about this defensive line, minus the twins who we've talked about for 4 years, and Darian Daniels, who came in last year and made such a big impact.
Yeah, you're right. There's those three were big losses for the Huskers, and I mean they're not going to be easy to overcome. But it's such an important position on the defense. It's probably overlooked a lot, especially in a 3-4 system, because those guys don't make a ton of plays. They kind of are, that front wave that are trying to free up the linebackers. Your outside linebackers are the ones that are rushing the quarterback and getting the sacks most often, and your middle linebackers are the ones probably making a lot of the tackles. So that it's very important, but probably underrated. So it'll be key for the some guys to step up and fill those three guys that you that you mentioned earlier. And one of the obviously the lead one is Ben Stilley. He's a senior, and he's going to have to he's been good for the Huskers, but he's going to have to take another step forward and be a leader on that defense, not just on the defensive line, but on that defense as a whole.
All right, I think this defensive line, I said this last night, I think it's going to be pretty good for Nebraska, not only this year but moving forward. Now, my rankings that are coming up here soon may not reflect that to a certain degree, but it doesn't mean I don't have confidence in this group, because I think they're going to get better and better as the fall wears on. So, Josh, why don't you lead us off your top three as we rank out the D-lines in the Big Ten West?
Yep, we were talking right before we went on that there's a lot of attrition, a lot of guys that have left that were really good in the Big Ten West on that defensive line. But my number one, I'm go with Wisconsin. I think that they're the cream of the crop in the Big Ten West, and they have both Isaiah Loudermilk and Garrett Rand back as seniors. A lot of depth behind those guys too. So I think that they are a little bit in a class of their own at the top. But then I have Purdue right behind them, and they probably aren't quite as good to me as the Badgers, but they have a lot of upside. They're probably their best player on that defensive line is George Karlaftis. Had a great freshman year last year back as a sophomore, and then Lorenzo Neal solid in the middle as well. And then I have Northwestern at 3. Joe Gaziano is one of those guys that I mentioned that is gone, but they still have plenty of depth and experience, and I don't think that they're going to take too much of a step back. They usually have a solid defensive line as a whole, even without a star player like Gaziano as a part of it. So I have Wisconsin 1, Purdue 2, and Northwestern 3.
Okay. Tim, how about yourself?
Mine are similar, but I got Purdue number 1. Karlaftis and Lorenzo Neal are studs, and Wisconsin has a little bit more depth, but give me the star power over them any day. But Wisconsin, they are my number 2, and then my number 3. Call me a homer, but I do have Nebraska. I think they're sneaky solid D-line. Yes, they lost the Davis twins, but you also have Ben Stilley, but I'm getting excited to see, what has Keem Green got in store, and young guys like Ty Robinson, and there's a lot of kind of question marks, technically speaking, with them, because you at a certain point they have to prove it, but I'm basically factoring in that they're going to be studs. So assuming that they are studs, and I think they are, I think Nebraska is good enough to be number 3. So just to recap, my 3, number 1 Purdue, number 2 Wisconsin, and number 3 Nebraska.
Okay. All right. I'm in line with Josh. I've got Wisconsin 1, Purdue 2, but I've got Iowa in the 3 hole. Chauncey Golston's a really solid defensive lineman. I know they lost Epinesa and some of those other guys, but they usually have them stacked up in Iowa City. So the Hawkeyes make my 3rd spot, but I match up with Josh at 1 and 2 with Wisconsin and Purdue 1 and 2. All right, how about the absentee votes? Tim, what do you have from Ben and from Austin?
Well, I think they were stealing from each other because they line up pretty much identically. Ben's got Wisconsin, Purdue, and Northwestern 1 through 3, and so does Austin. Wisconsin, Purdue, Northwestern.
Okay. All right, Josh, back to you for 4 through 7.
All right, very good. My number 4, I have Iowa here. You mentioned them at 3, Greg. They obviously lose A.J. Epinesa, which hurts, but Chauncey Golston was great last season. We'll see how much of that was because of Epinesa, but I think that he's a really good player in his own right. So I have the Hawkeyes 4. I have Nebraska at number 5. Like Tim said, some unproven guys that are going to have to step up. Ben Stilley, like I mentioned a little bit ago, he's the only guy that's really done it at a consistent level through a full season, but there are so many other names that you can mention, and probably Ty Robinson's the one that I'm most excited about, just seeing what he's done in the weight room and then hearing what Coach Tuioti said in that last segment. So I have Nebraska 5, I have Minnesota 6, lots of unknowns, especially at the defensive end spots, and then I have Illinois at 7 because they lose all 4 of their defensive line starters. I don't really know what they have coming in, but I have to put them at number 7 coming into the season.
Okay. Tim?
My number 4, I got Northwestern. They should be okay. Joe Gaziano is going to be a huge loss for them. Their all-time sacks leader, but they got some veteran leadership they can lean on. Then Iowa next at 5. They're missing Epinesa, but they have guys like Chauncey Golston who are going to step up to probably avoid a giant drop-off. And then at my number 6, you got Minnesota. Only one returning starter coming back. That's their nose tackle, Micah Drew Treadway. And so he's going to have a lot of burden on his shoulders. Then Illinois, they're dead last. They're my cellar dweller. They don't think they really have much to work with. So unfortunately, the Illini and Lovie Smith's crew, they are at the bottom of my D-line rankings.
All right, very good. I go Northwestern in the 4 hole. I think I just flipped that with Josh, who had them. A couple guys had them at 3 and not 4. So I've got Northwestern at 4. I've got Nebraska at 5. And again, I think this could even be a smidge higher as this season goes along, but I need to kind of see it a little bit as we move into this thing. Minnesota at 6, they had more losses than I thought when I started this exercise a couple of hours ago. So I've got the Gophers at 6. And I know Illinois doesn't have any starters back, but they were banged up a lot along that defensive line. So like Nebraska, a lot of their twos played a bunch a year ago. Calvin Avery's one of those guys that played a lot but wasn't considered a starter but is back. I don't know they're as bad as you guys are kind of making them, but yeah, even in this whole thing, they're still probably 7th in this whole thing as well for me. So to recap, I go Northwestern 4, Nebraska 5, Minnesota 6, and Illinois at number 7. How about B&A?
Yeah, the peanut gallery. Ben has Iowa at 4, Nebraska at 5, Minnesota at 6, Illinois 7th, and Austin virtually the same, but he has Iowa and Nebraska flip-flop. He's a little bit more optimistic on the Huskers. He's got them at 4, the Hawkeyes at 5, the Gophers at 6, and the Illini dead last. Pretty much the same as everyone else.
We're not really all that different for the most part. No. Tim, a little bit more aggressive on the Huskers, and that's fine. That Kool-Aid tastes good. I mean, that's okay. So, yeah, we're all not really far off as you go through the balance of that. All right, so here's what we have left. This is our last position breakdown during the month of July. We still haven't done special teams, quarterbacks, and tight ends. Those are the 3 positions we have not yet touched on. We're getting to them. We will get to those as we move through our next position breakdown. It'll be next Tuesday night. All right, what did you think? Where are we on, Rolf? What do you think? Also, been a chance for me to shamelessly plug our new phone number. This, again, goes for calls or texts, 531-500-4686, 531-500-4686. A bunch of people, and I mean a bunch of people, have been sending us texts. That's great. We've been having fun replying to those throughout the hour. If you want to jump on with us, you can send us your thoughts about the defensive line if you have something about that, or you just want to say, hey, do I have the right number plugged into my phone so I can send instant texts to you guys about whatever topic you're talking about that. So we'll review that, take some calls, and wrap up the hour next. 500-4686. Yep, new number, 531-500-4686. Getting a lot of interaction on text. Our U.S. Cellular text line is up and operational. Ron in Omaha said, this is awesome. I listen to your show about every night, but it's hard to call in when you are at work. Now I can just send you a text. That's exactly what we're trying to do. A lot of times we know people are maybe sitting in their car, talking to somebody, watching a soccer practice or a baseball practice, and can't really pick up the phone and call, but they can go, I got a thought about that, and fire us a text. Love that. That's incredible. That's good. Going to be good stuff. So we appreciate all the instant reaction we've gotten on this. Kind of surprised, but pleasantly surprised, Josh, by this.
Yeah, a lot of action so far in the first 30 minutes now since he first gave out the text line number. Love hearing from people, and if you're texting in and you want us to read it off on the air, do what Ron in Omaha did. Give us your name and where you're texting from, and we'll be sure to read it on the air. And even if you don't want your name and where you're from on the air, you can still text us, and if it's good enough, we'll just read it anyway. But yeah, it's fun to hear from everybody, and hopefully it'll keep growing and getting bigger as we go forward.
Josh, a week ago today, we started the Major League Baseball season, and there's obviously been a hiccup this week with the Marlins situation, but for the most part, I've watched a ton of baseball in the last week. Tonight, the NBA started. The New Orleans Pelicans lead the Jazz at halftime by 12, 60-48. The NHL starts their playoffs on Saturday. 24 teams are in the playoffs for them, so they get that cranked up. The NBA is going to play, I think, an 8-game regular season finish and then start their playoffs up. This is fun. This is good. This is going to be a fun August, I think, for sports fans.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, obviously there have been a few hiccups, like you said, with MLB, but overall, like you said, I've been watching. I have the Twins game on right now. I'm watching it on one of the screens here, and I was watching the NBA before the show started with the Pelicans, and I am looking forward to even more games starting up with the NHL. I'm curious to see what that format's going to look like with the playoffs and how that's all going to unfold. But yeah, it's so nice to have sports back, and obviously if even in a normal time, if we had all these sports going on at once, we'd soak it in. But with the drought that we went through where there were no sports being played whatsoever, to have basically 3 sports all coming back at once and then more hopefully on the horizon in about a month, it's a dream come true for sports fans like us.
I didn't realize how much I missed Major League Baseball until it started up again a week or so ago. And like I said, I bet I have seen 10 or 12 teams already play. Flipping the dial every day, seeing if MLB Network has something. Maybe it's FS1, maybe it's ESPN. It's been great to see. By the way, how are the Twins and Cardinals doing? Because the Twins have gotten the better of that series.
It was just a 2-game series, a clean sweep for the Twins. It's done, and Tim's Cardinals are they're done. They're 2-game sweep for the Twins. Love it.
Tim, I'll let you have a retort.
I'll just let you know I can shut your mic off at any time, Josh.
Oh,
all right. That's all I gotta say.
Fair.
Cardinals
fair
coming in hot.
I'm done now. All right.
Will they play again?
I think so. I think there's one more series.
Twins,
one more.
Twins go to St. Louis then.
Yep.
Yeah, because that was at Target Field. All right, well, that's been fun. Fun hour. I love hearing from Coach Tuioti. He is you can tell how he has really fit in well at Nebraska. I think he really likes his guys. I mean, some of the comments he made on some of the players and the not enough weights in the weight room for the polar bear and how much weight some guys have put on and how impressive Ty Robinson looks like. You can just tell in his voice, Josh, he's generally excited about that group.
Right, and that's what we talked about it a little bit last segment about, there are guys that have, it's a position that has a lot to prove, but you can't not be excited about the talent level. Ty Robinson, I think, is one that I talked about last segment about how excited I am to see him and the growth that he's made over his year in the program. And then you mentioned another one, Nash Huttmocker. He's been off the charts as a true freshman in that weight room, and I know that. Does that necessarily translate to the football field? Maybe not. He probably isn't going to be first-team All-American just stepping out there as a true freshman, but I would think that he's going to get a chance to show what he's got in fall camp, and he might see the field as a true freshman. But there's a lot of other young guys too that we haven't mentioned yet, but Coach Tuioti did, and you can tell that he has glowing things to say about them, and he's really excited, and that obviously translates to excitement for us because he's the one that knows a lot about them. So yeah, I think there's a lot to be excited about, despite there being a lot to prove from that position group.
When I look at this football team from 3 years ago, when this staff came through the doors, they've made, I think, major upgrades at that position, defensive back and offensive line, and that is going to be sustained because there's a lot of young players in all three of those position rooms that give you a lot of hope for the future of Husker football. Our Sports Nightly Hotline brought to you by the Woodhouse Auto Family, bringing you more choices in brands, locations, and service. Experience the difference. Purchase with confidence. This is Woodhouse. What an hour here on Sports Nightly. Hope you enjoyed hearing from Tony Tuioti.
Only schedule for the 2020 season set to start on September 26th. The SEC will reportedly follow a 10-game conference schedule plus one additional non-conference game. In Major League Baseball action, earlier today, the Nationals took down the Blue Jays by a final score of 6-4, and the Cubs and Reds were in the top of the first inning before their game got postponed due to rain. Games in progress, top of the third, Yankees lead the Orioles 5-4. And also, it's the Indians with the 2-0 lead over the Twins in the bottom of the third. Also in the bottom of the third, Red Sox have a 1-run lead over the Mets, 1-0 to score right now. The Braves have a lead over the Rays, 2-0 the score in the top of the fourth, and in the top of the third, it's the Royals who lead the Tigers 2-1. Moving on to the NBA, where the first game of the restart is underway in Orlando right now. Pelicans lead the Jazz 60-48 at the half. Also coming up tonight at 8 o'clock, Clippers will take on the Lakers. And in Husker news, the men's golf team announced that former Arkansas Razorback Jeremy Sisson will be joining Nebraska's 2020-21 squad. New York native redshirted for the Razorbacks last year and will have 4 years of eligibility with NU. Additionally, the Husker wrestling team announced that they've added Brown Tunn to their roster. Two-time Texas State champion went 24-2 in his senior season, winning the state title at 160 pounds. Live inside the Husker Sports Network studios, I'm Curran.
Your state. Your team. Your show. This is Sports Nightly.
Lejean in a quarterback from Maryland. Looking at 3rd and 9 now at the 30-yard line. Lejean gets the snap. Gets hit, dropped. Oh, what a sack. Big-time hit by JoJo Doman back at the 21-yard line. Doman's second sack of the year.
Now, let's check the pulse of Husker Nation with your hosts, Greg Sharp and Josh Hilkeman.
Here we are, hour number 2, Thursday night show. Thank you so much for spending some of your evening with us. You picked a good hour to be a part of. This is going to be a big hour. Teddy Greenstein comes by every Thursday night. We're going to get to him here in just a couple of minutes. We'll continue our preseason top 25 countdown. We're already up to number 17. How about that? We will reveal that for you in a few minutes. We are ready to drop out a podcast, Conversations with the Cooks. Lauren and John Cook will play a snippet. It's going to drop tomorrow where you access your podcasts. So we'll hear what the head volleyball coach has to say here at the end of July. All the uncertainty about the college volleyball season certainly still there as well. And we'll end the hour with our Flicks Picks of the week. But we get the hour underway with Teddy.
He's originally from New York, but now calls the second city his home. He prefers seeing a yellow card over an icing call. His choice in pizza is still up for debate, but his knowledge of sports spans from boxing to yachting. Sponsored by Bathfitter. For the beautiful bath you've always wanted, kickstart your bathroom remodel by visiting bathfitter.com today. Now, here's the worldly Teddy Greenstein of the Chicago Tribune.
All right, man, I wake up, I'm having my coffee, and there's your byline and all kinds of breaking news. Well, I hope you saved something for us here. What, has anything changed in 12 hours?
Well, I know when I was on furlough from the Tribune, you were getting all my stuff. I could not report anything in print, so everything was exclusive to Greg Sharp and Ben McLaughlin. Now I did have to write some stuff for the paper, and I spoke to a good source a couple days ago, and he laid out the current plan, and he cautioned. He said, look, it's already changed since Monday, so I can't promise any of this is how it's going to be, but this is what we're looking at now. 10 games, 3 to 5 off weeks in case teams have to quarantine themselves, and be off for a while, and front-loading the divisional games, so East versus East and West versus West in those first, probably essentially 6 games that might last over 7 or 8 weeks, and they're looking at September 5th to start. He also said there's been no talk of spring ball, and there's been no talk of some kind of bubble, which God bless my buddy Stuart Mandel at The Athletic. He's been talking, I think, about how to bubble college athletes. I think we all know that's not happening.
Okay, so the SEC is going to go late September. You still think September 5th? And the ACC is doing away with divisions. They're just going to get the top 2 teams. What about the divisions? Are they still going to hold in the Big Ten?
Yeah, Greg, this has been one of the interesting aspects of this. Every league looks at it differently. I mean, the Big 12 is moving up. They're moving up to week 0. So they want to start earlier. The Big 10, I mean, my guy clearly says what's important to them is to have these extra weeks built in where they don't have to, have every team playing. That's also smart from a TV perspective, right? I mean, if you can have teams playing 10 games but do it over 14 or even 15 weeks, if you can offer, 4 or 5 Big Ten games a week, that would obviously be great. So I think that's the smartest philosophy. I don't know if the SEC is doing it its way because there are more outbreaks in the South right now, and they just feel like they need more time to try to get it under control. But it is interesting that, you've got the Ivy League that cancels, you've got the ACC that's going 11, Big Ten 10. I mean, they all have their different thoughts, and I hate to say, is this all just a total futile exercise? Is there going to be college football at all? But as my source said, if you don't at least plan for it, you got no chance.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, Notre Dame wraps into the ACC this year. Are we reading too much into that? Is this a one-time only thing? You're pretty well connected with the Irish.
Oh, I would think it's definitely one-time only. I mean, Notre Dame has this great situation. I've seen some people call it friends with benefits. I think that's a pretty good line. Notre Dame gets the best of it because all of its other sports, they don't have to concoct schedules for the tennis team and the women's basketball team and all that. So they've got this great league, the ACC, for all of its other sports, which makes it much easier. And Notre Dame fancies itself as an ACC-type school. They think they're sort of like, Virginia and North Carolina and Wake Forest and a lot of these strong academic schools. And then they have this good situation in football where they play 6 ACC opponents every year. So that means, often they'll get Clemson or Florida State, NC State, Carolina, pretty good teams. But then they also get to go out and play SC and Michigan State and Purdue and Northwestern and teams like that. So, if you're Notre Dame, you have a great situation. You get all this extra money from NBC for TV revenue. Why would you give that up? I don't think it's powerful enough to say, oh, well, now they get to play in the ACC championship game, so they can play in a 13th game. I just don't think that's enough. Could there be a situation where they end up playing, 8 ACC games? I could certainly see that. But obviously they still want to play Navy and USC, and they want to play a school in Texas and a school on the East Coast because they feel like that helps their recruiting, and it really makes their alums happy. It's obviously a national school, and they want to, they want their alums in San Antonio or Los Angeles to be able to see them every now and then.
Yeah, no doubt. Teddy Greenstein with us from the Chicago Tribune. One of the big stories in your area was the passing yesterday of longtime Illinois coach Lou Henson. I don't know how much interaction you had with him, but it certainly seems like he was a pretty good gentleman, a pretty good poster for that program.
That's right, Greg. That's a good word, gentleman. And I ended up writing a little column. I went into the Wayback Machine. So in 1994, I was 21 years old and a reporter at Sports Illustrated. And I was heading out on my first road trip, my first assignment, to go around to, I think it was Illinois, Michigan, and Wisconsin. and do some interviews for our college basketball preview issue. So our editor at the time said, hey, when you go to Illinois, try to ask Lou about his son, Lou Jr. I said, oh, okay, well, what should I ask? He said, well, Lou Jr. died in a car accident 2 years ago. I said, okay. I didn't really know Lou at the time. Had maybe interviewed him in group settings a couple times, so that felt like that was going to be pretty uncomfortable. I asked Lou about it, and he couldn't have been nicer. And he said, hey, do you want to jump in my car and we can drive to the gravesite? And I said, absolutely. And honestly, I don't remember much about that, but what I remember was we got back. We were in the parking lot of the basketball arena. And he says, wait here for 1 second. And he runs inside to his office, and he comes back, and he's signing his book. And he ends up signing his book, and he says, thank you for asking about Lou Jr. And, wish me the best of luck. And I just always remember that. One, it struck me how nice he was to me. And two, folks who lose a child, I'm sure a lot don't want to talk about it, but some I know really do want to talk about it. And when it's that child's birthday, they want you to say, happy birthday. It happened to my cousin passed away at a young age, and his parents really want to talk about their son. So I think it's a good reminder to people that, yeah, there are a lot of couples out there, even if they lose a child, they want that child to be remembered.
Well, good story. Teddy Greenstein again with us from the Chicago Tribune. All right, I need some help from you. I have been a Sports Illustrated subscriber probably for 30-some years. I got a renewal notice in the mail the other day, and usually it's a quick sign it, put the credit card on there, and send her back in. I'm struggling this time. I don't know whether I'm going to keep that. Am I loony here?
You and I didn't set this up before, so I don't think you know my story, but I mean, I became a sports writer because of Sports Illustrated. I really was not interested in reading To Kill a Mockingbird and Catcher in the Rye. And, I used Cliff Notes to get me through all those kind of lit classes. But I read SI for pleasure, read it cover to cover, probably starting at maybe 13, 14, 15. And that's what made me love it. So fast forward to, in the last few years, and I've had so many friends who've been laid off by Sports Illustrated. Fortunately, my buddy Michael Rosenberg is still there. They've hired Pat Forty. Tom Verducci is probably the best baseball writer who's ever lived. So it's not completely without talent, but it's so stripped down. And I hate what they've done with the website. So finally, I get the same card as you in the mail, and I've been a subscriber since at some point in the 80s. And, I actually called and said, hi, is there going to be a discounted rate because there are fewer issues? And I think they said no. And then the next thing I know, I had just canceled, kind of like that. Like I was actually, I think, ready to negotiate a little bit and maybe keep it. And the next thing I know, there's no SI. And it really actually was a dilemma for me as well. Like, do you, quote unquote, punish the current owners who have completely ruined the magazine by not subscribing? Or are you then still hurting your colleagues who rely on subscriptions to survive? It's a very tough call. All I know is I no longer subscribe. And there's so much other stuff to read out there, The Athletic, ESPN, a million publications. So I can't say I miss it, but I did it with some sadness.
Yeah, it's probably been 30-plus years. I remember growing up, and my buddies and I would argue over whether that was the better thing or the sporting news. They loved the sporting news. It gave you a lot of box scores and a lot of statistical information. Right. I wanted the profile pieces. I wanted to learn about these people, and that's what drew me to Sports Illustrated, plus the photography was fantastic. Yes. But I'm with you. I mean, one, they stripped down how many issues they're doing per year, and they didn't give you a break in the rate, so you're paying more for less. And then now I don't know half the writers when I open up a magazine, so I've struggled with it. You probably just sealed it for me right there.
Yeah, and they give it away for free on SI.com.
Yeah.
So when I want to read Tom Verducci or Pat Forty, it's right there. So, their management has been terrible. I can't say much for our management, but we do need to all try to support each other because print journalism, man, not exactly going so well.
All right, good stuff. Other than tracking this hour by hour, you got anything else you're cooking up right now?
Not a ton, man. I'm certainly going to be excited for the PGA Championship next week, but I think more as a fan than as a writer. And, just keeping one eye on the Cubs, one eye on the White Sox. Obviously, NBA's get started, Blackhawks and all that. But I think work-wise, it's going to be college football, man. I'm interested in talking to some schools about, like, what it's going to take just to conduct a practice. All that you're going to have to do just to have a full contact practice, let alone when you get to the game. So we'll see if I can pull off that story next week.
Very good. We'll look forward to hearing from you next week. Thanks, Teddy.
Thanks, Greg.
There he is, Teddy Greenstein, joining us on our Sports Nightly Hotline, brought to you by the Woodhouse Auto family, bringing you more choices in brands, locations, and service. Experience the difference. Purchase with confidence. This is Woodhouse. Here on a Thursday night, Greg Sharp, Josh Shokeman with you. Tim Curran keeping an eye on the scoreboards for us tonight as well. Time for us to continue on our preseason top 25 tonight, number 17.
It's the Sports Nightly preseason top 25 tonight.
Javonte Williams to the left of Howe. He'll send him out into the flat right side. Howe looking, standing tall, lets it go. Man there. Touchdown! Touchdown, Carolina! Daz Newsome tiptoes in the right side of the end zone for 6.
Number 17, North Carolina Tar Heels.
And here to talk about the Tar Heels, Jones Angel, the play-by-play man for North Carolina. And Jones, they talk about sometimes in life you get second chances. For Mack Brown, a second chance to come back to Carolina and be the head coach. And boy, did it look like it worked well last year. What was your experience being around Coach Brown last year?
Well, first of all, Greg, thanks so much for having me on, and looking forward to talking with you about Carolina football. And you're right, it was a terrific first season, and I've been calling it Mack Brown 2.0 here in Chapel Hill. And I think it's interesting because I think maybe the farther away from Chapel Hill you were when the Mack Brown hire was announced, probably the more questions you had, and you went, "Wow, really? Is that something that makes sense?" But I think closer to the program, the needs that Carolina felt that it needed to fulfill and the things that it felt like it needed to improve on, Mack Brown was the perfect fit to help those needs and improve in those areas. And so I think that's why you saw a successful first year, is that Mack Brown, and I understand fully what he did at Texas. Before I even say this, let me just preface it with that. I understand fully, national champion, a contender for the championship almost every single season, and I get what Texas football is. But I think Mack Brown and Carolina fit together. He understands this university. I think he understands some of the unique challenges that you may have here. I think he understands the relationship with the university side of things with the athletic department. I think he understands the town of Chapel Hill. And I think that knowledge that he built up from his first time here has helped him be successful quickly in his second tenure. And so he immediately was able to fix some of the things Carolina needed. That Carolina needed to really foster better relationships, particularly in the state of North Carolina recruiting-wise. Mack Brown is as good at that as any head coach in the country. Carolina needed to get a shot of energy and improve some relationships with its fan base. And I think it immediately did that with Mack Brown's return. He put together a terrific staff. He, I think, defined the roles very clearly within the structure of Carolina football. And I mean all the way down from the person who cleans the football center at the end of the day to the coordinators on the offensive and defensive side. Everybody knew what their role was, why their role was important, and how it helped Carolina win. And so all those things put together, I think, added up to a successful first year. Carolina has recruited well since Coach Brown has been here. They think they'll be, assuming we have a season, and we certainly hope we do, that they will have a solid year this year and feel like they're really building a foundation to be good for a long time.
Well, we learned a long time ago with Coach Brown that personality is infectious, and it carries through a lot of things, and I think we saw that last year. Jones, for our audience, tell us how good Sam Howell was last year as a freshman, and how good do you think he can be?
He was terrific his first year, and I think it all started with what Sam did away from the football field. And I know you hear these type of things when you're talking about athletes, but I think it was absolutely true in Sam's case, that he took care of all the things you have to take care of that help you then be successful on the field. And by that I mean, he put in the extra time in the film room. He gained the respect of the older players on the team with his work ethic. He was in a battle for the starting quarterback position as a true freshman with some older guys, in the preseason last year, and he did all the right things and earned that job. And so when he started doing all of those things correctly, and, got enough rest, ate correctly, took care of his body, paid attention in the weight room, all those things, took care of his academics. All those things allowed him to then be more successful on the field itself. And then when you do all those things right, that's when you start seeing the arm talent and his ability to run and just all the different things that allow you to be a successful quarterback. And in addition to that, I think Sam Howell just has whatever that mythical it factor is. He to me has it. He wants the ball in big situations. He isn't afraid to make big throws. He isn't afraid to have the ball down 4 with 90 seconds left. He seems to be that guy and seems to thrive. He didn't have 100% success in that area last year. Carolina was in a ton of close games. They won some, they lost some. But it wasn't because the moment was too big for Sam Howell. And so when you add all those things together and you throw for, more than 3,600 yards and 38 touchdowns compared to just 7 interceptions as a true freshman, that's pretty darn good. So Carolina feels very excited about the young man to have in that quarterback spot.
It also helps to have weapons around a quarterback, and Carolina has that. 1,000-yard rushers, 1,000-yard receivers. Tell us a little bit about the offense.
Yeah, I think that's Carolina's strength for sure is the skill position. And they do have 2 1,000-yard receivers returning in De'Ami Brown and Daz Newsome. Those guys, De'Ami had 1,034 yards, Daz with 1,018. They combined for 22 touchdowns and more than 120 catches a year ago. And so when you have a guy on the outside in Brown who is as good as anybody in this conference at taking the top off, that double move type of receiver that can get you a 70-yard bomb in the blink of an eye and help keep the defense a little bit looser and a little bit more honest because they know that threat is always there. He's really good at that. Newsome is a smaller receiver, a slot guy, but he fills that role perfectly where he can just find spaces to get open. And to credit both of those young men, they really took steps forward. You had seen flashes from them, both of them in their career up to last year, but there had also been some things they really need to improve on. Newsome, for example, had a couple of key drops and had some balls that he should have caught that he did not. He cleaned that up terrifically last season. And so when you have 2 veteran guys, in addition to some other really good players at that receiver spot, Bo Corrales, Toe Groves, Antoine Green, all guys who have played for Carolina in the past, plus some really exciting young players, too, at that wide receiver position, I think the Tar Heels feel as good about that spot as any position on their team. And then you can also talk running backs, too, because they've got a 1,000-yard rusher in Michael Carter and Javonte Williams, who rushed for more than 900 yards last season. Those 2 guys are both back as well. Really powerful back in Javonte Williams, hard to tackle. Michael Carter's a little bit more based on speed, can get out there on the corner, can get into space, and is really tough to tackle, but they're a really impressive 1-2 punch. And so when you have that kind of depth and talent level at those 2 spots, it certainly makes life easier for your quarterback, to be sure.
Yeah, I'm visiting with Jones Angell, the play-by-play man for North Carolina. We have the Tar Heels at number 17 in our preseason top 25. Last year, Jones, 49th in the country in total defense, with a lot of guys back, particularly in the back half of that defense. How good can that group be, do you think?
Yeah, Carolina took a big step forward last year defensively. I think that was one area where they've really struggled over the last several years. And I'm going to go all the way back to when Mack Brown was here the first time. Near the end of his first tenure in 1996, 1997, when Carolina was a pretty consistent top 10 team for those back-to-back seasons, it was really based on what the Tar Heels were able to do on the defensive side of the ball. They just had some absolute studs on that side, guys who were terrific college players, guys who went on to big-time pro careers as well, and that's where they really built the success of their team. In the, quite honestly, 20 years since, Carolina's defense has had some good years and some bad years, but in general, just not as good as the Tar Heels needed that side of the ball to be. And even during Larry Fedora's tenure, and Coach Fedora did a terrific job here in Chapel Hill. He has a brilliant offensive mind. You know, Carolina really did some nice things, particularly offensively when he was here. But the Tar Heels just were never where they wanted to be defensively. So I think they took a big step forward last year in trying to start to gain some of that consistency, start to try to get a little closer to where they want to be. I think Jay Bateman is an elite defensive coordinator. He had a terrific first season at Carolina. The big question mark, I think, is going to be up front. They lost their best two guys on the defensive line, Jason Strobridge, Aaron Crawford, two veteran players. Strobridge was drafted as well by the Miami Dolphins. So two guys who are pretty good football players at the college level and were really the stalwarts up front. That will be a big area Carolina needs to improve on. But the next two levels, I think the Heels feel pretty good. You know, they went into last year not knowing what they had at linebacker, and then all of a sudden they found Jeremiah Gimmel and Chaz Surratt. Surratt, a terrific story, who was a quarterback initially at Carolina, made the very unusual move from quarterback to linebacker and then had an all-conference type of season. He's on all the watch lists leading into this year on a national level. And then in the secondary, Carolina was young and thin last year due to some injuries. They feel much better where they are right now on the backside. They've got a couple transfers who are now eligible. They're more healthy than they were a year ago. And they were forced to play some young guys that now have some experience. So that all of a sudden went from an area that was a little inconsistent a season ago to one that now they feel like they have a whole lot of competition in. So if they can figure out a way with some young guys and some guys will be asked to take a step forward to get some quality production on that defensive line, I think Carolina's defense can be better this season for sure.
Well, Jones, we believe in the Tar Heels. I think you do as well. Let's hope now we just get some football games to be played here in September and October and see how good this group can be. We certainly appreciate it and have some great calls here this fall.
Thanks so much for having me on, and look forward to talking with you again soon.
Jones Angel, the play-by-play man for North Carolina, joining us on our Sports Nightly Hotline, brought to you by the Woodhouse Auto Family, bringing you more choices in brands, locations, and service. Experience the difference. Purchase with confidence. This is Woodhouse. There are always a couple of teams, Josh, in the offseason that get a lot of love. Carolina's kind of this year's version of that. They're getting a lot of love. Why do we like them, do you think?
Well, there's a few reasons. One is the talent that they bring back, and you heard Jones go on and on about Sam Howell, who had a tremendous freshman season, and there's the reasons why he's so projected to have such a great season. But then you look at what the weapons that he has around him too, and Diami Brown and Daz Newsome, especially at the wide receiver spot, guys that he's throwing to. That's obviously a lot of reason for optimism. I think one thing too, you look at the season that they had last year. They were 7-6, so they lose 6 games. But those 6 games, the biggest defeat that they took was by 7 points. And they were in basically every single game that they played. So, and they ended the season with 3 straight wins. And Mac Brown, he's kind of getting things going there. So, and he's obviously proven as a head coach. I think there's a lot of reasons to be optimistic. I don't, obviously, as Jones said, the defense has always been kind of the one thing that has needed to be there. Whenever there's been a lot of hype around a North Carolina football team, it's been that defense that has kind of let them down. So we'll see if that can change this year. I think that they have a good amount of guys returning on that side of the ball. We'll see what happens, but I think that I have reason to believe that we have a lot of reason to have them here in the top 20.
They jumped. He really got her going early last year. They beat South Carolina in their opener. Then they go beat Miami. They stumbled to Wake Forest, and then they had that game against Clemson late September where he went for 2 to try to beat them, and I'm glad he did. I think that was they lose 21-20. He could have tied it and gone to overtime, but when you're the inferior team, and I think he knew they were, compared to Clemson at this point in time, go for it. I was so glad. I remember where I was watching that going, come on.
Same.
Because I was really pulling for him to get it done. It just couldn't quite get it done.
Exactly, yeah. I remember exactly where I was watching that game, too, and I'm right there with you. And I mean, think about if they had pulled that game off, how much of a shot in the arm that would have been. It could have completely changed their season because, like you said, that was in late September, Game 5 of the season. They still had some big games left, and they ended up losing a couple of overtime games after that. Virginia Tech and Pittsburgh were overtime losses. So I think that, yeah, that was a huge moment of that season, but it's also, so many guys are back on this North Carolina team that, that I think that's a good learning experience, and I think that they're going to have a good year, and we'll see how it goes for the Tar Heels.
Would have changed Clemson's season, too.
Yeah.
I don't think they make the playoffs with that loss because that league was perceived to be really weak. But, boy, 1,000-yard receivers back, a 1,000-yard rusher back, quarterback who was dynamic last year as a freshman. Yeah, I mean, I can see why they're kind of one of the it teams in college football going into 2020. All right, when we come back, we're going to play you a snippet of the latest edition of the Conversation with the Cooks. That's coming up next. Each month, we have a little podcast called The Conversation with the Cooks, where Lauren Cook sits down with her dad, Nebraska volleyball coach John Cook. In this episode, which is going to hit podcast services tomorrow, they talked about, obviously, any update on the upcoming season, but also talked about some of the new additions to the Husker roster. Let's give it a listen.
Okay, so you said just Big Ten schedule only. That is 100% certain.
Yeah, so what we're doing is we propose a 20-match schedule. It's Big Ten conference only. And probably what's going to happen is, again, this isn't for sure yet, but I think a team will go and you'll play 2 matches back-to-back on the same weekend. So, for example, Nebraska would travel to Penn State, and we would play them a Friday night, and we'd play them a Saturday night, and then come home.
Okay.
So the thinking behind that is you've got 2 teams, 1 spot, same refs, and everything's controlled. The senior women's administrators did propose a pod schedule, which 4 teams would go to a spot. The problem is, what if one team tests positive and has an outbreak? Then you potentially could sideline 4 teams. So now that's why we've gone to just playing 2 matches. It simplifies travel. And, of course, the schedule they'll build will eliminate as many long trips as possible. But, Nebraska's and Rutgers are the 2 most challenging teams travel-wise because we're on the edges of the Big Ten Conference. And so we're going to have to fly some. They want to try to eliminate as many flights as they can and just bus. So the Northwesterns, Illinois, Purdue's, Indiana's, Michigan's, those guys, it's all easy for them to bus to almost everywhere. But, of course, the outliers are Nebraska and Rutgers. So
you're still going to have to charter?
Yes.
They won't make you fly commercial. You'll still be able to charter, correct?
We'll charter.
Okay. And that schedule still isn't fair because you may have to play Penn State twice at their home, but they may never come here, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
So it's not going to be a fair schedule. So we already know that. So it's whatever they come up with. And the other thing that we try to do to point out is we have great ratings on Wednesday nights. So is there a way, and I explained, how they could do it. So let's say Nebraska's playing Penn State. So we pull out 1 match goes Wednesday and 1 match goes Saturday. And maybe, so you just pull 2 out from the weekend, put it on a Wednesday, Saturday.
But wouldn't the girls miss more school then?
No, it would be normal Wednesday, Saturday week. But it would just, so we'd have 1 match of the week on a Wednesday night.
Okay.
So just think you would have 7 sites. We have 14 teams. So you'd have 7 sites going. Well, one of those sites would actually, instead of going Friday, Saturday, would go Wednesday, Saturday. And that way you could have a Wednesday night match because the Big Ten owns Wednesday night. We have great ratings. We want to continue to keep that kind of as a Wednesday. It's just like Sunday nights is Yellowstone.
And Sunday night football?
Yeah, Sunday night football. But right now it's Yellowstone.
Okay.
And so, you wait for that. Well, I think people wait for Wednesday night volleyball. So we want to continue to keep that in people's minds and not lose the advantage that we've built for Wednesday nights.
There you go, a little snippet of the Conversations with the Cooks. Again, it will drop tomorrow. You can listen to any of your podcast services to hear that. once a month conversation with the Cook Cemenstein stuff there. Him about talking about having a kind of a feature match on Wednesday nights. That's been pretty popular, and I think he's right on the money to try to do that each and every week during the volleyball season. We'll see what happens with that. All right, Josh, want your thoughts about something I just saw that passed over the wire a little bit ago, that Major League Baseball and the Players Association have agreed to go with 7-inning doubleheaders beginning August 1st, so that's this weekend. So if you have to make up a game now in Major League Baseball for the 2020 season, it's 7-inning games. I don't quite get this. I mean, you're there. They're big league players. You got 30-man rosters right now. I don't understand the need to do this.
Right. I don't really get it either. I know that we're in an unprecedented situation, trying to squeeze a bunch of games in and not really knowing, there's a lot of uncertainty and all that. But I just don't understand why this is the way to go. Maybe on days that there's doubleheaders, expand the roster, be able to bring up a couple extra pitchers or something like that just for the doubleheader day. I feel like there should be rules like that in place. Like, I just don't understand what the thinking is here because, like you said, they're major league players. They're getting paid to play 9-inning games. We've already had the extra runner on second base and extra innings rule added so that we don't have, or in theory, don't have as long of extra inning games. But this just seems like a step going like way too far and unnecessary, really. I get it. Like, they want to. I think that the reasoning for Major League Baseball is they want to be able to get in as many of the 60 games as they possibly can, and so already with the schedules being thrown around, they know they're going to have to start playing doubleheaders here and there, and to be able to do that, I guess they think that it's going to be too hard on players and teams to have to play full 9-inning doubleheaders. I guess I don't know. It's not like it's going to be that much more of a strain. You're already, like you said, they're already playing in that spot that day anyway, and then maybe traveling to another spot later. Like, what's an extra hour of baseball? It doesn't really make sense to me.
I agree, and we're already playing 100 fewer games on the year. Right. So, I mean, and I know we're doing this. There are not many off days. I get that, but this is Major League Baseball, and they've expanded the rosters. If they wanted us to leave the rosters at 30 for the year, do that. That's fine. Right. I don't think anybody cares if it cuts down to 25 eventually or 26 or whatever. Leave it at 30. That's okay. But this just doesn't make any sense to me. Plus, if I'm a television partner, I'm losing commercial breaks when you go to this, right?
That's a great point.
I mean, their television partners go, wait, we sell 9-inning games, and now you're taking a couple of innings away from us on these doubleheaders. We're already short-shrifted as it is, and now you're taking innings away. I don't get it. I'll be honest, and I think you differ on this. That's fine. I kind of like the runner at second base thing. I do.
Yeah, I know. I heard you last night with Lane, obviously, talking about that, and both of you guys have thought it has been pretty cool. And I'm not 100% on board. I don't think that it should be a rule going forward. I'm okay with it for this season. Like, it's a rule that I'm able to be like, okay, like, it's fine for this season. I just don't know if I can get on board with it for, all the years to come for Major League Baseball. It's to me, it's too big of a change. But, I mean, it very well might be going in that direction. We'll see.
Yeah. Last night I watched the Dodgers and Astros. They ended up playing 13 innings. Neither team attempted a bunt. And you would think, runner at second, sack to third, sack fly, you got your run, you might win the game right there. And nobody bunted in the 10th, 11th, 12th, or 13th innings.
All right. I get it as the away team, why that's your strategy not to bunt. You want to get as many runs as you can. But as the home team, when you can walk it off with just one run and you successfully sacrifice that guy to third base with one out, that pressure is on the pitcher and catcher and everybody in the field. The infield's playing in. There's so much pressure on that team when you have a runner on third base, one out, and that's the winning run. So it's funny to see that strategy. It's been the strategy in baseball just in general, not bunting guys over, but to see it in that situation in extra innings for all the way through the 13th to not have any guys bunting in that situation, it's interesting to see. That's for sure.
I get it. The new way of thinking in baseball is bunt is just giving away an out. You already got the guy in scoring position. A base hit should score him anyway. So why are you giving away an out? I get it, but two sacrifices could get you a run. A sack bunt, a sack fly gets you a run, or a sack bunt, wild pitch. There's so many ways to get a guy home from third.
And win the game.
And win the game. Particularly, you're right, as you said, as if you're the home team. All right, need to take a break. When we come back, we'll have our Flicks Pick segment. That's next.
No sports on this weekend, but we've got you covered.
I know everything about film. I've seen over 240 of them.
Time now for Sports Nightly Flicks Picks.
And action!
All right, time to see what we've been viewing here in the last several days. Josh, let's start with you.
All right, very good. I have a trailer for this. It's actually a documentary put out by Netflix, and it's called Athlete A. And before I talk about it, here's a little bit of a tease for that.
I just wanted to call you. I'm very nervous talking to you about it, but I think it would help bring justice to the people who have been affected by USA Gymnastics and their policies.
This was the most explosive story in several years, yet it was coming out of a small little newsroom.
Larry Nassar had been the team doctor for USA Gymnastics women's program for 29 years when we got these allegations about him.
I was like, he doesn't see you? She said, yeah, he does it to me too.
And I said, we need to call the authorities. Steve Penny, he said, no, USA Gymnastics will take care of calling the police.
USA Gymnastics, negotiating with Larry, agreed to lie to people, and that shows a cover-up.
So this is, like I said, a documentary put out by Netflix, and it focuses on Maggie Nichols, who was a gymnast who was trying to make Team USA and was training with Team USA. Didn't make the Olympics, but she was the first, or one of the first, to come out and talk about the sexual assault by Larry Nassar, who, of course, has been gone through his trial, but there's focus on that, but really the bigger part of this documentary was talking about USA Gymnastics and how they basically covered it up for multiple years, and they didn't just deny it. They basically they defended Larry Nassar. They tried to hide the fact, and they told all the gymnasts that what they were saying would be taken care of, and it wasn't. And so it was an interesting deep dive into that story, and it was really honestly hard to watch, but it was good. It held my attention for sure.
Yeah. The Corollas, I think, are going to get dragged into this thing as well as they continue to move through this. All right, Tim, what's on your plate?
I caught Dr. Sleep a little bit ago, watched it on HBO. It's actually the sequel to The Shining, which is originally why I avoided it. I said sequel to The Shining, no thanks. Turns out it's actually great, and I think it actually works better as a drama. It technically is a horror film, but it actually does work as kind of a really deeply touching drama as well. It stars Ewan McGregor of the Star Wars prequels fame. He does an excellent job, and it's actually really, really good stuff. I'd definitely recommend that, especially if you got HBO. It should be on demand there.
Very good. Well, I'll continue kind of the deep, dark stuff for tonight. I popped on Netflix the other day, and the movie Spotlight popped up. It was an Academy Award-winning movie. Here's the trailer.
I know there's things you cannot tell me, but I also know there's a story here, and I think everybody will hear about it.
Do you think your paper has the resources to take that on?
I do. Do you?
The Boston priest molested kids in 6 different parishes over the last 30 years. The church found out about it and did nothing. We haven't committed any long-term investigative resources to the case.
No, we haven't.
And that's the kind of thing your team would do.
Spotlight? Guys, listen. Everybody's going to be interested in this.
It's about the Boston Globe, who did the tough story about the abuses in the Catholic Church with priests toward young adults. Mark Ruffalo, Michael Keaton, Rachel McAdams, Liev Schreiber. Terrific cast. Stanley Tucci. Great cast. Really well written. Some incredibly intense acting scenes. I really enjoyed the acting. The topic was difficult to stomach at times, but it's really, really well done. So Spotlight's what I caught up with over the week. All right, good stuff there. There's our Flicks Pick segment for this week. Tomorrow night, we'll continue our Around the Big Ten. We'll go check out what's happening at Rutgers, another top 25 entry as well, number 16. Another hour of Sports Alley coming up here